Welcome to a short instructional video on Facilitator Skills for the BC Rural and First Nations Health and Wellness Summit. Thank you for volunteering. As you may know, the facilitator is responsible for providing a safe climate and working atmosphere for the meeting. But you're probably wondering, what do I actually do during the meeting to guide the process along? Here are the basic steps that can be your facilitator's guide. And before anything else, remember to always look at your camera rather than somewhere else. There's nothing more disengaging than someone talking to the computer monitor or the keyboard. Few of us start our meetings on time. The result? Those who come on time feel cheated, that they rush to get there. Start no more than 5 minutes late and thank everyone who came on time. When latecomers straggle in, don't stop your process to acknowledge them. Wait until after a break or another appropriate time to have them introduce themselves. Make a point to welcome everyone who comes. Don't worry about the size of a group if the turnout is small. Nothing will turn off folks who did come out if they are told that the session isn't worthwhile without a larger group. Thank all of those who are there for coming and analyze the turnout attendance later. Go with who you have. There's lots of ways for people to introduce themselves to each other that are better than just going around the room. Refer to the document about facilitation training for some ideas. The kinds of introductions you should do depend on the number of people, the overall goals of the meeting, and what kind of information would be useful to know. Record people's names. Have the co-facilitator rename people where necessary in the Zoom participant list. It is important to make everyone feel welcome and listen to at the beginning of the meeting. Otherwise, participants may feel uncomfortable and unappreciated and won't participate well later on. And don't forget to introduce yourself. Share some of your background so folks will know why you are doing the facilitation and what has led you to be speaking up. Make sure you go over what's going to happen in the meeting. Check with the group to make sure they agree with and like the agenda. You never know if someone will want to comment and suggest something a little different. This builds a sense of ownership of the meeting and lets people know early on that you're there to facilitate their progress and their meeting, not your own agenda. The same is true for the outcomes of the meeting. You'll want to go over these with folks as well to get their input and check that these are the desired outcomes they're looking for. Encouraging participation is one of your main jobs as a facilitator. It's up to you to get those who need to listen, and those who ought to speak. Encourage people to share their experiences and ideas and urge those with relevant background information to share it at appropriate times. Try putting a check mark beside each person's name as they speak or write in the chat. Ask those who aren't speaking or writing if they have a question or a comment. You can even ask people if they want to speak to their chat comments. Groups tend to wander far from the original agenda, sometimes without knowing it. When you hear the discussion wandering off, bring it to the group's attention. You can say, "That's an interesting issue, but perhaps we could get back to the original discussion." Or, "Can we park that idea until later?" Have your co-facilitator act as your timer and figure out a system, whether it's a text message, a signal by turning their video on, or some other method, to make you aware of time and when it is time to shift to the next agenda item. Are people shifting in their seats? Are they bored, tired, look confused? If folks seem restless or in a haze, you may need to take a break or speed up or slow down the pace of the meeting. And if you see confused looks on too many faces, you may need to stop and check with the group to make sure that everyone knows where you are in the agenda and that the group is with you. Using body language to control the dynamics in the room can be a great tool. Moving up closer to the monitor and asking someone to speak make them feel more willing because they can look at you instead of the big group and feel less intimidated. And be careful about deciding where the meeting should go. Check back after each major part of the process to see if there are questions and that everyone understands and agrees with decisions that are made. Getting commitments for future involvement is often a meeting goal. You want leaders to commit to certain tasks, people to volunteer to help an initiative, or organizations to support your group. Make sure that adequate time is allocated for seeking commitment. For small meetings, write people's names down and record the tasks they agreed to undertake. One important rule of thumb is that no one should leave a meeting without something to do. Don't ever close a meeting by saying, "Well, we'll get back to you to confirm how you might like to get involved." Seize the moment, sign them up. And many groups will discuss things 10 times longer than they need to, unless a facilitator helps them to recognize that they're basically in agreement. Summarize a consensus position, or ask someone in the group to summarize the points of interest, and then move forward. Some groups feel strongly about reaching consensus on issues before moving ahead. If your group is one of them, we have a handout on consensus decision-making that you can read. Many groups, however, find that voting is a fine way to make decisions. For most groups to work well, they should seek consensus where possible, but take votes when needed in order to move the process forward. The facilitator protects the shy and quiet folks in a meeting and encourages them to speak out. There's also the important job of keeping domineering people from monopolizing the meeting or ridiculing the ideas of others. Sometimes people dominate a discussion just because they are really passionate about an issue and have lots of things to say. One way to channel their interest is to suggest that they consider serving on a committee or task force on that issue. Other people, however, just like to talk to hear themselves talk. If someone like that shows up in your meeting, it's worthwhile learning some tips for dealing with disruptors. Sometimes issues will arise in the meeting that are so important they will take much more time than you thought. Sometimes nobody will have a thought of them at all. You may run over time or have to alter your agenda to discuss them. Be sure to check with the group about whether this is okay before going ahead with the revised agenda. And when you finish a point or a part of the meeting process, sum up what was done and decided, and pause for questions and comments before moving on. Learn to feel out how long to pause. Too short, and people don't really have time to ask questions. Too long, and folks will start to get uncomfortable from the silence. And then before ending the meeting, summarize the key decisions that were made and what else happened. Be sure also to summarize the follow-up actions that were agreed to and need to take place. Remind folks how much good work was done and how effective the meeting hopefully was. Refer back to the objectives or outcomes to show how much you really accomplished. And leave time for people to record their thoughts and thought exchange. This is in your agenda. And take a minute to thank people who prepared things for the meeting or did any work towards making the meeting happen. Thank all of the participants for their input and energy and for making the meeting a success. People appreciate nothing more than a meeting that ends on time. It's usually a good idea to have some closure in a meeting, especially if it was long, if there were any sticky situations that caused tension, or if folks worked especially hard to come to their decisions or make plans. A nice way to close a meeting is to go around the room and have people say one word that describes how they are feeling now that all of this work has been done. You'll usually get answers from exhausted to energized. If it's been a good meeting, even the exhausted ones will stick around before leaving. And finally, remember, be calm, be kind, and have fun. Thank you, and good luck.